Today on the Inside Scoop, can Texas win the state of Texas? LSU is cooking under Lane Kiffin, and Colorado's new OC brings some fresh juice to Boulder. We're going to get started, but first, guys, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, the Rivals Recruits channel. We are going to be doing this all off-season long, so jump on board. All right, we got a big show. I am your host, Josh Newberg, so let's get to it. The battle for the state of Texas is on, and in this video, we're going to see how the Longhorns stack up when it comes to recruiting the class of 2027. We're going to go behind the scenes with national analyst Sam Spiegelman. Before we do that, Texas fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, the Rivals Recruits channel. All right, let's bring in Sam Spiegelman, and we're here to see if Texas is ready for the battle for the state. And let's start with the number one player, not just in the state of Texas, but the number one overall player in the Rivals rankings, Jalen Brewster. He's already made an early commitment, and it's not to the Longhorns, but it's early. And do you think that Texas can get back in this recruitment?
Yeah, they're going to swing away, but they have a lot of ground to make up. You talked about the early commitment to Texas Tech. That was calculated. They had been leading for some time before he pulled the trigger. If there's any teams that are going to be able to give Texas Tech a run, I would more lean toward the Aggies and potentially a school like Indiana, where his dad has family ties to the Hoosier State.
All right, we're going to go through all the early five stars in the state of Texas. Next up, cornerback John Meredith, a top 5 player in America, regardless of position. Where do the Longhorns stand?
Yeah, John Meredith is the real deal, Josh. A&M is the team that I would peg as the early favorite, but Texas is not going anywhere. In fact, I would say quite the contrary. Their stock continues to rise since he visited in November. Alabama is another team very steadily in this race. And Alabama and Texas are both gaining ground on A&M, which was expecting to get John Meredith on campus as early as this weekend.
All right, that could end up being a national battle. Speaking of national battles, 5-star offensive tackle Kennedy Brown is certainly one of them. Are the Longhorns considered the favorite here? Are they in the mix for Kennedy Brown?
They're definitely in the mix, but they also have some ground to make up. I hate to keep repeating myself, but A&M has some early rapport with Kennedy Brown. They've hosted him, I believe, 10 times over the past year or so. Alabama, Clemson, Oregon are also very much in the picture, along with the Longhorns, which also have a lot of familiarity with Kennedy Brown and have had him in Austin quite a few times. I don't think that they're going to go anywhere in this recruitment anytime soon. Yeah,
we're only like 5 days into the offseason here, so these can certainly change. These recruitments they're roller coaster rides. So this is just kind of a starting point for Texas recruiting. And Longhorn fans probably, turn into recruiting right now. The season's over. It's time to focus on the offseason. So it's good to know where they stand, honestly, with some of the top players in America. So let's go to the last 5-star right now in the state of Texas, Cooper Witten, linebacker. His dad just got hired at Oklahoma. His father's a Tennessee alum. Is there any way Texas can land Cooper Witten, the number 1 linebacker in America?
They're certainly trying. Cooper got a chance to see the Longhorns in action at the Cotton Bowl last season, and he is very excited about the hire of Will Muschamp. Who wouldn't be if you were a defensive standout like Cooper Witten? As you mentioned, his father is now the tight ends coach in Norman, and he's a legacy in Knoxville. I think Texas has some ground to make up, but they are on the short list of contenders behind Oklahoma, A&M, and Tennessee right now.
Yeah, so we will continue to watch those battles, but right now, who is Texas in good shape for?
Yeah, let's start right at the top. They are in a great spot with newly offered quarterback Ty Knutson, just won his second straight state championship for Smithson Valley just outside of San Antonio, just visited for Junior Day, and I think Texas is the team to beat for Ty Knutson. They're also in a fantastic spot with a ton of skill position players. This is Texas, of course, we're talking about. Julian Caldwell and Trey Moore are a pair of blue chip wide receivers that Texas is in a great spot for, and they're a finalist for. Ismael Kamara is the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country, and he will be back at Texas before the end of the month. They recently offered Montre Jackson, a very speedy Rivals 300 cornerback from Dallas. After getting him on campus, they are now the team to beat over schools like Oklahoma, Tennessee, LSU, and SMU. They're also in a great spot with other 4-star defensive backs, Taylon Mayo, 4-star defensive end, Cameron Hall. They're also in a great spot with Lathan Wissington, one of the top running backs in the Rivals 300 from Waco, who has also just been on campus in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting offseason. What's your expectations? Like, what's the ceiling for this class? I mean, obviously, Texas is looking at a top 10 finish here, but how good could this class be?
I mean, you said it. It starts with being a top 10 class. Under Steve Sarkisian, the Longhorns have never finished outside the top
Yeah.
10 when it comes to recruiting classes. This front office, starting with Steve Sarkisian, who has such a massive role in the evaluation and recruiting of these players, that's where it starts. So they're starting with a top 10 foundation. And if they're able to turn over a couple of these dominoes, win some big recruiting battles for guys like Ismail Kamara and Montre Jackson and Julian Caldwell, if those stones go in favor of the Longhorns, we're talking about another top 5 haul because they're also going to pepper in plenty of national talent along the way.
Yeah, and Texas traditionally under Steve Sarkisian has kind of taken their time in a day and age where recruiting is so sped up. Texas doesn't mind waiting until the end of summer or July to really turn it on and start landing those commitments. So we got a lot to watch for this offseason when it comes to Longhorn recruiting. Texas fans, talk to us. Who do you feel like is the most important target for Texas to land this cycle? Let us know, comment section below. Let's talk LSU recruiting. It's been so exciting since Lane Kiffin has taken over this program, whether it be transfer portal or high school recruiting. Lane Kiffin is cooking. So we're going to break it down. We got Sam Spiegelman, national analyst here at Rivals. We're going to go behind the scenes of some of these latest offseason moves. But before we get into it, LSU fans, hit subscribe because all offseason long, we are talking Tigers recruiting. All right, let's bring in national analyst Sam Spiegelman. And are you surprised how hard Lane Kiffin is working? And, I mean, we knew the Portal King would get active in the portal, but there's a lot of momentum at the high school level right now.
Yeah, well, if you heard Lane Kiffin speak a little bit earlier this month, Nick Saban told him it was the best job in America, and he's treating it like that. He's recruiting one of the most talent productive states in the country that a lot of the kids dream of playing in Tiger Stadium. We saw how he ended the 2026 cycle, keeping Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson the number one athlete and the number one defensive lineman in the country, both on board despite many other big schools around this country throwing a lot of NIL money and trying to get them on campus. He's able to close strong. He's wasted no time. You said it right. He hit the transfer portal as hard as LSU needed. They needed some roster improvements, and they're picking it up right where they left off with this 2027 class. They have a ton of blue chip talent inside the state of Louisiana for the 2027 cycle and beyond. They always have an influx of talent. Lane Kiffin and this new staff that he's assembled in Baton Rouge have picked up right where the previous staff has left off and are potentially making even more rounds this time around.
Yeah. So who's emerging right now is top of the board targets? I mean, guys that LSU fans are going to be talking about still in December. It's only February. Well, it's almost February. It's still January. But who will they be talking about when the cycle ends?
Yeah, you have to start with the two number ones. There's a couple of number ones in the booth this year, but let's start with the number one interior offensive lineman. LSU fans love offensive line play. Albert Simeon is the number one interior offensive line prospect in the country out of Lake Charles and a top priority for the staff. Coach Eric Wolford, in his first year in Baton Rouge, just went to Sam Houston High School to visit with Simeon, who is supposed to visit Texas A&M this weekend, but he is likely to head back to Baton Rouge before he makes a decision, and LSU is trying to get into this race as fast as possible. There's also number one tight end in the country, Ahmad Hudson, 5-star, multi-sport athlete, LSU legacy at that. He's set to visit A&M. He's set to visit Nebraska. I don't expect LSU to go anywhere in this race. He is a top priority for the staff, has been and will continue to be. LSU's also in a good spot recruiting other blue chippers in the state like Miguel Whitley and Braylon Kalai and Javon Vital, who might be close to a decision. They're also in a great spot with 2 4-star defensive back targets, Karan Eugene and Jaden Anding, who, of course, is another legacy target for these Tigers.
All right, well, one name you didn't mention is a 5-star flip target potentially. Easton Royal, one of the top players in the state of Louisiana, made an early commitment to Texas. What do you make of that? And are you ruling LSU out nearly a year from signing day?
Yeah, this was a big get for Texas dipping back into New Orleans. You know, they signed players like Arch Manning out of New Orleans in the
Yeah.
past, and they're looking to keep that momentum in Louisiana. And they get an early commitment from the number one receiver in the 27 class, Easton Royal. Lane Kiffin was at Brother Martin High School this week visiting with Easton Royal. We know that LSU was in a good spot before he pledged to the Longhorns. And I can tell you that LSU will never stop recruiting Easton Royal. He is a blue chipper. He is at the top of their receiver board, and he has a great relationship with Lane Kiffin and George McDonald, who were among the leading coaches recruiting him when they were at Ole Miss. He had made multiple visits to Oxford in that span. I don't think LSU is going anywhere in this recruitment, though. There is a long road to go for the Tigers to get him back on campus and back into the lead spot there.
All right. Well, let's move over to in-state recruiting. And, we kind of talked about it already, but the top two players in the state of Louisiana this year could end up leaving the state. Easton Royal committed to Texas. And then you got quarterback Elijah Haven, who, for whatever reason, just isn't a target for LSU. Wasn't really with the old staff, is not really, or at least not yet, with this Lane Kiffin staff. So that being said, as it stands now, the top two players in the state could be leaving. So how's LSU looking for the rest of the top players in Louisiana?
And to be fair, Josh, you could add Albert Simeon to that mix. It might be the top three players in the state end up playing elsewhere.
Yeah.
Albert Simeon is very coveted by not only A&M but Notre Dame and Alabama. But above all, like I said earlier, most kids in Louisiana dream of playing for LSU, and though they're playing for behind for guys like Simeon and Royal, we're not ruling them out of this
Right.
race. And as I mentioned, guys like Jaden Miles, Miguel Whitley, Braylon Kalai, Jaden Andon, Karan Eugene. These guys are very excited about the changes in Baton Rouge. You can add Ahmad Hudson to that mix.
Mm-hmm.
This staff has a ton of energy. I think probably the biggest knock on Brian Kelly was the lack of recruiting enthusiasm that he displayed as the head coach. Fans of the Tigers are used to guys like Les Miles and Ed Orgeron and,
Right.
dare I say, Nick Saban at the helm. I think Brian Kelly was a little bit of a twist in that, but Lane Kiffin is a fan favorite on social media. He is actively recruiting in the portal, in the high school ranks, and this staff have turned a lot of heads with the way that they've gone about business. They've hit Louisiana first, which is always important, but they're hitting all those key recruiting areas like Georgia, Texas, and around the South for top targets. And I think they're doing pretty well so far.
Yeah, and it's really early still. Some of these recruits, hey, it sounds great to go play 2,500 miles away from home when you got a year till signing day, but when it comes closer to the time where pen hits paper, things start getting real and you reconsider. So we'll see what happens here, but it's an exciting offseason for LSU any way you shake it. So LSU fans, talk to Sam and I. How we feeling? Who's your top target? What do you think of in-state recruiting? Talk to us, comment section below. We are talking Colorado recruiting, and in this video, we're going to break down how Deion Sanders' new offensive coordinator is already impacting the Buffs recruiting class. Now, we're going to break it down with Adam Gorney. But before we do that, Colorado fans, do me a favor. We love talking CU Buffs recruiting. We're going to do it all offseason long, so hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. All right, let's bring in national analyst Adam Gorney. So, new OC, new recruiting strategy. What kind of connections does Brennan Marion bring to Colorado recruiting?
Yeah, he will bring a lot of interesting connections there, from bringing Xavier McDonald, who flipped right after Marion announced that he was leaving Sac State to come to Colorado. Sort of a youthful energy, a little bit of head coaching experience, and a lot of experience running an offense, whether, at UNLV. He was at Texas before that. So he's got some big credentials to his name. He's coming in to run an offense, that was run by Pat Shurmur, sort of an older guy. And we all know that Deion Sanders isn't out and about recruiting. So I think Marion's going to kind of bring that energy on the recruiting trail. He's going to be able to get guys. He has connections from his time as a coach throughout the West, and a lot of bona fides as a play caller there. So I think those are the interesting things. And I think it was the absolute main reason why Xavier McDonald and his brother Dolph, committed right after Marion got the job at Colorado. Xavier flipped from Sac State, and then Dolph McDonald committed the same day. So I think that's a good start from a high school recruiting perspective. A lot more to go there, but I think he, adds a little bit of juice to the Colorado recruiting room.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, Brennan Marion was running his own program. he was known as a really good recruiter. Even though he didn't have a great logo on his shirt at times, he was still pretty nationally known as a great recruiter. Do you think, could Brennan Marion do a majority of the heavy lifting when it comes to recruiting, if that's what Coach Prime wants?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the intention. One, like you said, he has, a lot of, offensive experience there. I think players are going to be really drawn to that, whether through high school or through the portal. They're going to know who he was. When he was at Sacramento State, he and his staff were always available and always willing to talk about Sac State football. So there's a very small audience for that world, but he didn't go there to just kind of run a program and be quiet about it. He really got out there. He was bringing the cars out. He was bringing recruits in. He had a very good and active and aggressive staff. I think he's going to carry that over. I think it's just his personality and his nature. And I think Deion saw a little bit of that. Like, I'm not going to do a lot of the heavy lifting here. I'm not going out on the road every day. And, there are going to be people that want to come here to take visits because I'm here. But Brennan Marion will be able to be that guy. He's only 38 years old. He's already been a head coach. He's very active and aggressive. I think on top of being able to be a good play caller in this offense, he's also going to do a lot of that stuff from a recruiting perspective.
Yeah, I agree. So when it comes to high school recruiting, we've kind of seen Coach Prime take a different path. They've been more portal focused, but do you get a sense that this year they're going to focus a little bit more on the high school level?
Yeah, I got that sense though last year too. Like I've basically been told that he had to come in, he had to bring his Louis Vuitton, he had to bring Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, get heavy portal. When he got the Colorado job, that was understandable. The roster was decimated. They hardly looked like a competitive team the previous year. So he had to come in and bring in an entirely new roster. But he's continued to lean on that, whether there's been successes that he's seen because of that, because the portal is just so big. There is just so much talent out there. You can't pass it up. But when you look at a whole of his recruiting class, it's pretty strong. It's pretty impressive. It's in the 30s range. When you look only at high school recruiting, it's not great. But when you add in that portal class every year now, John Calipari did that for years at Kentucky, just sort of reinventing his roster every single year. It's a little more dangerous in football just from a continuity standpoint, but that's sort of the line that he's taken to rebuild this program and start winning again. I think this season was a little bit of a concern and a backstep, getting back into the portal and getting a lot of the guys, DeAndre Moore, Boo Carter, a lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball. I think that was really impressive for them to do in the portal again.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on this portal haul? I mean, we've seen, the portal haul, obviously the first one to Colorado with Shedeur and Travis and all the guys from his previous stop, but now, he's built he's there. He's established himself at Colorado. What did you think of this year's portal haul?
Yeah, impressive, and it's clear that a lot of effort was put into it. And so you could be critical all you want of the high school recruiting and what they've gotten there. And there are definitely nice pieces. But you go down the list here, and he went to every Power 4 conference for guys and really focused a lot on the SEC. DeAndre Moore was a nice piece in Texas's receiver room, although a little overshadowed by Ryan Wingo and some other guys. He went to Vandy to get Randon Fontenette. He went to Tennessee. Boo Carter couldn't really get it going there. So a very talented player that probably just needed to restart somewhere else, feel a little bit more comfortable. He went to Ohio State for guys. He went to Utah, which is always a nice place. Bo Hughley from Georgia. So it's not like he was just kind of taking pieces from anywhere to go after guys. He was going to the elite programs in the country, getting guys that probably needed a fresh start, couldn't really get it clicking at one school. And Deion is very good at doing that and getting guys going again. So there's a lot of talent in this portal class. And there's a lot of guys, and that's why you sort of like guys that are JUCOs too, because they're hungry and they want to prove themselves. They're not coming in and they need to be re-recruited a lot. So I think that's really, really important as this class comes in. Even if from day one that chemistry isn't there, if you can quickly get that going, I think that could really provide a spark.
Yeah. So let's end it on this. What do you think the ceiling is when it comes to high school recruiting. What do you think the ceiling is for Colorado recruiting this cycle?
Yeah, that's tricky because it quite honestly hasn't started off all that hot. The only commit they have is Dolph McDonald, whose brother was in the 2026 class.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wanted to play with him. And they just haven't really gotten it going a whole lot yet. So there's a lot of good, in-state offensive linemen. None of them are really all that serious about Colorado right now. So this is sort of the tack, though. Like, come back to me in 8 months. I think that's when they really start getting into recruiting. And I think that's sort of the philosophy of Deion Sanders is I don't need to recruit a guy for 11 months and 3 weeks. I can kind of get in there in the last few weeks, get guys on campus. There are going to be coaching changes inevitably down the road where guys are sort of unsure about what's going on. And then I can close strong, I think he's done that before with high school recruiting. I think he's going to do it again. We live this world and we see coaches at schools and in-home visits and playing, video games with kids and shooting basketball with kids and doing everything else. You don't really see the Colorado staff out doing that all that much. Yeah. They just feel like that they might have a little bit of a different philosophy, a different tact of how to go about high school recruiting and especially portal recruiting. And they're going to build their class that way for better or worse.
All right. Well, Colorado fans, what do you think? Do you think this is the year that Coach Prime and his staff can break through at the high school level? And also, what's your thoughts on the portal haul? Looking good so far, but it's a long way till the start of the season. Talk to us. Comment section